Imagine an elderly black woman cruising in a pristine luxury car, her smile as bright as the gleam of her vehicle. But her peaceful drive takes a sharp turn when flashing blue lights appear in her rearview mirror. As she's pulled over by a police officer, the tone quickly shifts from routine to unsettling. The officer, known for his history of questionable behavior, seems to have an agenda. Tension fills the air as questions arise. Why was she really stopped? And what does this officer's past have to do with it? But the story doesn't end there. What starts as a troubling encounter unravels into a jaw-dropping revelation about both the officer's history and a long-hidden family connection that changes everything. Stay tuned as we explore how this chance encounter reveals deep truths about prejudice, resilience, and the unexpected ties that bind us all. The officer approaches the car, his demeanor cold and rigid. The elderly woman, calm but cautious, hands over her license and registration without question. Her name, etched in bold letters on her ID, seems to catch him off guard. His eyes narrow, and for a moment, it's as if he recognizes her, or at least her name. He stammers slightly before proceeding with what feels like unnecessary questioning, his tone dripping with an authority that borders on intimidation. As the exchange continues, her composure remains unshaken. What's striking is her confidence, as though she's dealt with moments like this before. What's equally clear is that this isn't just a routine traffic stop. There's a tension in the air, a sense that something unspoken is lurking beneath the surface. The officer's unease grows, and his questions become less about her driving and more about her personal history. The mystery deepens, leaving us wondering, what is he hiding? As the officer leans closer, his tone shifts, less formal but still probing. He asks if she's from the area, his words laced with an odd familiarity. The woman, unfazed, answers politely but firmly, sensing something unusual in his line of questioning. Meanwhile, a small crowd begins to gather at a distance, watching the interaction unfold. Phones are out, recording the scene. It's clear that people sense something isn't right. The officer seems distracted, almost as though he's trying to piece together a puzzle only he can see. Then he asks a question that catches her off guard. "Did you know someone named Elijah Green?" Her expression shifts ever so slightly, but she quickly recovers. The name clearly means something to her, though she doesn't let on. The tension thickens as his own discomfort grows. Why is he so fixated on her past? And who is Elijah Green? The question lingers in the air like a heavy cloud, and for the first time, the woman's calm demeanor cracks just a little. She meets the officer's eyes, her voice steady but edged with curiosity. "Why do you ask?" she counters. The officer hesitates, his hand resting on the edge of her car window, fingers twitching nervously. He mutters something about just doing his job, but his eyes tell a different story. There's something personal at stake here. Then, almost as if speaking to himself, he says, "Elijah Green used to live around here. A lot of people knew him." The woman's gaze hardens. It's clear she knows more than she's letting on, but she chooses her words carefully. "A lot of people did," she says quietly, her tone suggesting there's a deeper truth behind her response. The officer's expression shifts again, a mix of recognition and dread washing over him. It's as though he suddenly realized something he wasn't prepared for. At the same time, the crowd watching from afar starts murmuring, sensing the intensity of the moment. Something is about to unravel, and it's clear this is no ordinary traffic stop. Both their worlds are on the brink of colliding, and the weight of the truth is almost unbearable. Just as the tension reaches its peak, a voice from the crowd calls out, "Is everything okay?" The officer straightens, startled, his composure cracking under the weight of the moment. He waves dismissively, muttering, "Stay back," but the interruption seems to have rattled him. Meanwhile, the elderly woman watches him closely, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Before he can regain control of the situation, she speaks, her voice calm but cutting. "You're not asking about Elijah Green out of curiosity. You know something." Her words land like a hammer, and the officer's face turns pale. He opens his mouth to respond, but she continues, her tone now tinged with authority. Elijah Green was my brother. The crowd gasps audibly, the ripple of shock spreading through the gathering. The officer visibly tenses, gripping his notepad tighter. Your brother, he stammers. His reaction is telling. There's more to this story than a family connection. Something about Elijah Green and this officer's past is tangled in a way that's far more complex and far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The officer steps back, his breathing uneven as if the weight of the revelation has knocked the wind out of him. The woman leans forward, her voice steady and sharp. You knew him, didn't you? And not from some report. You were there. Her words hit like a bolt of lightning, and the officer's silence confirms what she already suspected. Finally, he speaks, his voice trembling. I was a rookie. Back then. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Elijah. He stood up for himself, and his words falter, and the unspoken truth hangs in the air. The woman's eyes well with tears, but her expression is one of quiet strength. You were part of it, she says, her tone a mix of sorrow and accusation. Before the officer can respond, a voice crackles over his radio, summoning him back to the station. He stumbles away, leaving behind a swirl of whispers in the crowd. As he reaches his patrol car, he pauses, turning back to the woman. I didn't know, he says, almost pleading. About you. About what he meant. But she's already rolling up her window, her parting words cutting through the air like a blade. You knew enough. As she drives away, a file folder slips off the officer's passenger seat, spilling old photos and documents onto the ground. Among them is a faded picture of Elijah Green and a younger version of the officer, standing side by side. The crowd disperses, but the weight of what's been uncovered lingers, leaving everyone, including the audience, wondering what else remains hidden in the shadows of the past. As the elderly woman drives away, the weight of the encounter settles over her. The road stretches ahead, but her mind drifts to memories of her brother, his laugh, his determination, and how he always believed the truth would eventually surface. She had carried his legacy silently for years, waiting for a moment like this, where the past would come knocking, demanding to be faced. The officer, still standing by his car, picks up the scattered photos. His hands tremble as he stares at the faded image of himself and Elijah. He had buried the guilt for so long, convincing himself he was just following orders. But now, he sees the truth through the woman's unwavering gaze, a truth he can no longer ignore. As she turns a corner, the sun dips low on the horizon, casting a golden glow on the road ahead. Justice doesn't always come swiftly, but she knows it has its own way of finding light.